Imagine building the world's most advanced exploration vehicle, spending the equivalent of millions of dollars, sending it to the most unforgiving place on Earth, only to watch it fail within days, then disappear forever. This is the unbelievable story of the Antarctic Snow Cruiser, a machine so ambitious that it became one of history's greatest engineering mysteries. In the late 1930s, Antarctica remained the most mysterious place on Earth, a frozen continent larger than Europe, covered in miles of ancient ice. Scientists and governments desperately wanted to explore it, but the environment was brutal. Traditional vehicles failed instantly, engines froze, and tires sank deep into the soft snow. Reaching the South Pole seemed impossible, until one man stepped forward with a radical idea. Dr. Thomas Poulter, a brilliant American engineer and explorer. Poulter didn't want to upgrade an ordinary truck. He wanted to build a monster, a massive, self-sustaining base on wheels that could cross Antarctica without ever stopping. It would have a kitchen, sleeping quarters, a laboratory for scientific research, and even a small airplane sitting on its roof. It was designed to change history. The American government approved the plan. Millions of dollars were poured into the project, but as construction began, nobody realized they were engineering a historic disaster. By mid-1939, the blueprints became reality. In a Chicago workshop, engineers worked day and night. What emerged from that factory was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. It was over 55 feet long, 20 feet wide, and stood almost as tall as a two-story building. It weighed a staggering 37 tons. To move this massive weight, they designed 4 giant custom-made wheels. Each tire was 10 feet tall and cost thousands of dollars. They were smooth, treadless rubber designed by Goodyear. The engineers believed that flat, smooth tires would glide perfectly over the hard Antarctic ice. Inside this steel behemoth, life was surprisingly comfortable. The crew had comfortable beds, a fully equipped kitchen with a stove, and a modern scientific lab. They even had enough fuel and supplies to survive for a whole year without any outside help. On paper, it was a masterpiece of modern engineering. It looked invincible. But there was one fatal flaw, something the brilliant designers completely overlooked, and it would cost them everything. In October 1939, the Snow Cruiser finally left the factory. To reach the ship in Boston, it had to drive over 1,000 miles on public roads. The sight was unbelievable. A massive red monster, rolling down the narrow highways of 1930s America, driving at a maximum speed of just 15 miles per hour. Everywhere it went, it created absolute chaos. Over 70,000 vehicles lined the roads just to catch a glimpse, causing one of the worst traffic jams in American history. Bridges had to be reinforced, and power lines had to be lifted just to let the giant pass. But the journey wasn't smooth. In Ohio, the driver lost control, and the 37-ton behemoth slid off the road, crashing straight into a stream. It stayed trapped in the mud for 3 days. It was a humiliating preview of the nightmare that was waiting for them in Antarctica. Somehow, they pulled it out. The Snow Cruiser finally reached Boston and was loaded onto the expedition ship, the North Star. As the ship sailed away toward the South Pole, the crowds cheered. But nobody knew they were sending a 37-ton iron brick to its final resting place. To get the 37-ton monster off the ship, the crew built a massive ramp made of wood and timber. It was a terrifying gamble. If the ramp broke, the Snow Cruiser would sink into the freezing ocean, taking the mission down with it. Dr. Poulter started the engines. The machine moved forward. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the ice. The wooden ramp began to shatter under the immense weight. The monster was falling. Poulter slammed the gas. With a massive roar from the diesel engines, the Snow Cruiser managed to slide onto the barrier ice just in time. The crew cheered, but their celebration would be incredibly short-lived. As Dr. Poulter tried to drive the vehicle toward the base, the reality of their mistake hit them like a frozen wall. The massive, smooth, treadless tires had absolutely no grip on the ice. The 37-ton machine was spinning its wheels helplessly in place. The mission was on the verge of total failure before it even started. But then, the crew noticed something strange. When they put the vehicle in reverse, it actually moved. The flat tires somehow caught traction, only when moving backward. It was ridiculous, but it worked. To travel across the most brutal continent on Earth, Dr. Poulter had to drive the 37-ton monster backwards. For more than 90 miles, the crew moved through the freezing white desert, looking out the rear windows to steer. But driving backwards couldn't fix the real enemy, the extreme cold. The complex engines were never tested in -60 degrees. Cylinders began to crack. The cooling systems failed. The luxury mobile base was rapidly turning into a steel coffin. They had no choice but to park the machine and abandon the drive. With the engines dead, the snow cruiser became a permanent part of the ice. Dr. Poulter and his men covered the vehicle with heavy timber and snow, turning the luxury machine into a stationary scientific bunker. For months, they lived inside this frozen iron shell, conducting experiments while the cold wind howled outside. But in late 1940, as World War II escalated across the globe, the United States government pulled the plug on the project. The funding was gone. The crew was ordered to pack up and evacuate immediately. They left the multi-million-dollar monster completely alone. For 6 long years, the snow cruiser slept under the Antarctic snow, completely forgotten by the world. In 1946, another expedition team returned to the site. They found a giant wooden pole sticking out of the snow. They dug down, and to their shock, they found the snow cruiser. Inside, everything was perfectly preserved. The beds, the laboratory, even the 1939 newspapers were still lying on the table. They documented it, left it, and it was spotted one last time in 1958. After that, it vanished. Today, the fate of the Antarctic Snow Cruiser remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Some scientists believe that the ice shelf it was parked on broke off, and the 37-ton Titan now lies at the bottom of the freezing ocean. Others believe it is still out there, buried under 100 feet of solid ice, waiting in the dark. A grand dream of science, lost forever in the white desert.